Hello and welcome to this edition of Bayou Time. Again, I'm talking a little bit about our Hurricane Ida recovery. A lot of that has to do with how we're doing as a community, and more importantly, how are we doing with taking care of the people that need the help. So very glad to have with me two friends and colleagues for many, many years. Joining me, Ms. Suzanne Troxler, who is the superintendent of Catholic schools for the Diocese of Houma Thibodaux. Welcome, Suzanne. Glad to see you again.
Thank you, Keith. Good to be here.
And sitting next to her, somebody we never need to introduce, Lonnie Thibodeau, Director of Communications, also with the Diocese. Lonnie, welcome.
Thank you, Keith.
Lonnie, we start with you. Let's kind of maybe just get an overview, just an update of how things are going with the Diocese and how we're doing after this massive impact of the storm.
Good question, Keith. I guess as we're sitting here and we're, I think, 25 days, I believe, as we sit here after landfall, at the Diocese, we call it the 3 R's. We knew from the start you're going to have to respond, then we're going to reopen, then we're going to recover. Now, with that being said, 39 church parishes, 11 schools, of which Suzanne will talk about in much more detail in a few minutes. But, and then you've got to respond to all of those people and all of the loss and destruction and all the things that all of you know about. And I don't need to belabor the point, but it is overwhelming, obviously. It becomes a big coordination job. And as I get back to the 3 R's, respond kind of meant, all those basic needs. We needed to provide food to people and shelter and pastoral care and all that in those opening days. Excuse me, not that we've gotten out of that phase. We still are there. But as we transition to number 2, which is respond, and that an area you'd be familiar with in your world, case management. Walking with people, walking with organizations, walking with schools, walking with facilities, walking with churches, and making sure they're taken care of. Again, Suzanne will talk more about the school aspect of that in a few minutes of where we stand with some of our schools. So we went from respond, now we're into reopen, and that's kind of where we are. And one of the bigger things that we've done since day one and continue to do every day, here's a phrase, after a disaster, whether it's COVID, I guess COVID gave us all kinds of catchphrases, right. Social distancing and all that. Well, here's one, pods. After the storm, points of distribution. And people throw that around a lot. And what we're doing in the Catholic Church is we have some set points of distribution, typically St. Lawrence and Chacahula, St. Hilary and Matthews, St. Eloi and Holy Family as we come down the Terrebonne bayous. As you go down to Lafourche bayous, Sacred Heart and Cut Off and Our Lady of Prompt Succor and Golden Medal. And what I mean by those are the ones, Keith, that traditionally pretty much every day are having a distribution. Food, hot food, supplies, all that, pretty much every day, the ones I just listed. In addition, there are others every day as well, but those are kind of the standard almost every day pods, if we can call them that.
Well, and I want to mention how remarkable of a job those are doing, but not only those points of distribution, but even some of those churches that have taken on dramatic damage. Annunciata providing meals. 2 of the other churches in the northern part of the parish, lots of damage, providing meals.
I know.
People in the parking lot cooking to provide meals. They don't have electricity or water at their house, but they're cooking to take care of the response because we needed to respond.
Yeah, it's been amazing. Annunciata, poor Father Paul Birdsall at Annunciata.
Just got there.
He just got there, and then the storm hits, and it's tough. Rectory damage, church damage, and it's tough. But Jimmy Danos with our Office of Construction and Buildings at the Diocese, has been doing a tremendous job, along with Bill Barbera, our COO, and the Bishop, and Father Mark Toops, who's heading up the disaster relief plan for us. It has been an unbelievable job of just trying to, because I heard Bishop say the other day, and he made a good point. Of our 39 churches, 36 had damage, and I'm talking like, I'm not going to say substantial, but you know what I mean.
Yes,
36 of the 39. Technically, all 39 had something.
So, that's right.
But 36 of the 39 had something that needs to be addressed. That's overwhelming. That's a good transition to the schools that we'll get to in a few minutes, because of those 11 schools, they all took various hits depending on where they were as well.
Right. Can we talk about where people can go to Mass?
Sure. Great question. I'm glad you asked that. And basically, I'll let people know the easiest thing. And I remember 2 weeks ago today or tonight when Suzanne and I were last sitting here, I think I said the same thing. The easiest thing is you get down to the end of the week, and I know it's Thursday night now, but as you get to tomorrow, Friday, probably the best thing to do is to go ahead and check the Facebook pages and or websites of those individual
Of each church.
parishes.
Each
now,
church
we
parish.
as a diocese, we do try to do our best at some point during the day Friday to try to put an all-inclusive list on our Facebook page, the Diocese of Houma Thibodaux.
Right.
Now, is it always accurate? Close enough, but probably if you really want to be sure, check with your individual church parish to make sure. But right now, the good news is, Keith, better than 2 weeks ago, we're close to normal now. Pretty close to normal in terms of mass schedules for a big majority of our churches.
Well, and I know we took a lot of time to do it, and I promise you I'm going to give you all of the time in the next segment to talk about our schools. But when you talk about responding, that's a response. And we talked about it for a long time. Earl Hughes and I talked about it week after week after week about how we need to get back to some sense of normalcy, and church is one of those for those of us that really need it, and all of us need it. And so that's a really big deal. So
It really is. And again, I know we're going to go to break in just a minute, but for me just to mention, coming out of COVID and everything, Keith, that happened a year to year and a half ago where we didn't have masses for a while. People couldn't go to communion. It's critical right now, and you're absolutely right. I'm glad we were able to provide that back to our parishioners.
we do. Maybe the greatest of news is that when Lonnie was talking about the 3 R's, respond, reopen, and recover, reopen's a big word.
Absolutely.
And you and your team have done a phenomenal job about getting some of these schools to be able to update and open. But give us a little update about schools.
Thank you. And I think the key here to remember is faith in action. That's what we're seeing right now. We are seeing across our diocese, across our communities, people putting their faith in action. And that's how we're able to start to move from that response in our schools to the reopening stage. Today, as I sit here, we have 8 of our 11 schools reopened in our diocese. We have
Remarkable.
gotten almost 4,500 students back in person, in in-person instruction. And, 2 weeks ago, we sat here with one school open, and that would not have been possible without the incredible effort and the huge amount of manpower that it took from our community, both within and outside of our community, to make that happen safely for our students.
And look, so I know some of the parents are the people that are back in the schools, and the communication and the ongoing communication. It's been so very important to make sure where people are, who can come back, and what we can
Absolutely.
open and where.
Absolutely. And throughout this process, as we respond in this disaster, communication's always been a challenge, right? From the very beginning. And so it was critical. We started to communicate to our parents from the diocesan level because we were able to do that through our pastoral center. We were able to push out communications when not all of our schools had that capability. Now our schools, our principals, they're communicating daily with their parents to keep them updated and abreast of the response and abreast of any updates that are necessary for their students and their staff. So, September 7th, we started with Central Catholic, the least impacted
Sure.
of our diocese
Over in
in
Morgan
Morgan
City,
City.
right.
And they were able to reopen on that day. Then the next school to reopen was in Houma. St. Bernadette Catholic School was able to return on September 14th. And after that, we were able to reopen our 3 Thibodaux schools, St. Genevieve, St. Joseph, and E.D. White Catholic High School on the 16th.
All on one day.
Right,
So y'all
3 on one
opened
day.
all 3 of those schools on one day. I mean,
Exactly.
I get chills thinking about what that's like for some sense of normalcy.
Right. Some sense of normalcy, some safety, security. Everyone is bearing their cross right now in different levels and different capacities. But to know we can bring our students and our staff back to a safe, secure environment, that is critical. We know it's important from an academic standpoint. We know it's important from a spiritual standpoint because this is what we do. This is our ministry in Catholic education, but also just a social emotional standpoint. And I know you understand that well. It is important for people to get back into their routine as quickly as is feasibly possible, but also to understand with that, to have the compassion, the patience, the understanding, because our schools are not all demographic schools like a public school system.
Right.
We have students in Thibodaux and in Houma that come from as far down as Golden Meadow, or even from Morgan City or from Napoleonville. So our students are spread out.
Right.
So it's important to always remember we still have people, we still have families without power. Whose
Right.
children are in school or are
Right.
attempting to be in school, some without that safe and secure water right now. So it's important to keep that in mind. So on September 16th, we reopened those 3 Thibodaux schools.
Right.
Then St. Francis in Houma was able to reopen on September 20th. St. Mary's Nativity and Vanderbilt Catholic were able to return today. They both returned today, St. Mary's in Raceland and Vanderbilt Catholic platooning with Edie White today. So that's the 8th of our schools that have so far reopened.
And for Edie White to be able to do this,
I know.
it's remarkable to me, because those teams, those teams, those are their biggest rivals.
Absolutely.
Edie White and Vanderbilt. If you know anything about
Absolutely.
Edie White and Vanderbilt, you know. But for Edie White to embrace Vanderbilt like that, it's just, to me, remarkable.
It was phenomenal.
Blows me away.
This is who we are. This is what we
Yep.
do. This is the ministry of Catholic education in the mission of the church. And being there today, seeing those students along with Bishop Fobb today, being able to see the excitement of the students returning to class, to being able to reconnect with their friends and their
Right.
teachers and their administrators, it was absolutely beautiful. And Bishop was able to share a message with all of the seniors today. He went from classroom to classroom of our seniors.
Wow.
And these were our Vanderbilt students on Edie White's campus today, to share his hope for them, to be able to, to ask them to continue to be the leaders that they are for their school, and to just thank them for coming together. This has just been the silver lining in a challenging situation.
Right.
It's seeing the glass half full, taking something that was not an easy fix, but it was absolutely something we could do to get our children back in school where they needed to be.
Well, and the fact that, it's really interesting as we wrap up here in these last few seconds, if there's anything that the diocese does beautifully, and that starts with the bishop, is to instill the value of hope.
Absolutely.
He's fabulous at that. You guys are very clearly fabulous about being able to do that. And this great example of Edie White and Vanderbilt is about hope, and about making sure that we're hopeful about the next step, which is the true recovery as we move into that. I can't thank you both enough for coming on. And again, we're going to put that schedule out again. I'm going to recap it a little bit later about all those schools that are open, because it's really important. Lonnie, thank you for being
thank
here
you,
today.
Keith.
I appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Suzanne, thanks for coming.
Thank you. And just our 3 schools that we're hoping to open very soon.
Right? Please. Yeah.
We're excited. Holy Savior, Holy Rosary, and also St. Gregory will be opening those soon as well.
All right, guys, we appreciate it. All right, that'll do it for this edition of Value Time. Don't go anywhere. A whole lot more local programming when we come back.